Good morning. Welcome into 104.5 The Zone. Hope everybody had a fantastic weekend. Probably a little less than fantastic for a couple of reasons I'm sure we're going to discuss throughout the course of the next 3 hours, but we got time for that. 615-737-1045. That's the number for you to join the conversation at any point that you so desire. Lucas Panziga back there making it happen. Ramon Foster going to hang out with us for an extra segment momentarily because he hadn't done enough heavy lifting on the Ramon, Kayla, and Will show this morning. We're going to have him carry us for a segment as well. But there is no place to start other than what happened in Columbia, South Carolina on Saturday night. No Titans yesterday to cover up the stench of a 63-38 ass-kicking. No way around it. Not even a competitive football game. And the disappointment of that is, where to even begin? I think I first have to start off, though, Lucas, with congratulating you and your fellow Vols fans on a 9-win. We'll see what happens with the next game. But a 9-win season, all of a sudden, wildly disappointing. Wildly disappointing. Can you imagine that?
Yeah, it's about how things transpire rather than what the result is.
Oh, yes. It is really, really crazy to think about the place that we thought they might be prior to the season beginning and where we find ourselves now, which is, yes, of course, the disappointment is gut-wrenching. It's soul-crushing. I can't remember which Indiana Jones movie is the Kali Ma one where they reach into the chest and pull out the guy's heart. But it felt like Spencer Rattler was kind of that guy.
Is that one Temple of Doom?
I think that's right. Either way, you understand the reference. And so because of that, because of what they have done so well to do and how far short they fell on Saturday night against South Carolina, it completely has to readjust your purview of what this season is going to be, because the season no longer is about the college football playoff, unfortunately. I'm as disappointed as you are. Well, maybe not as disappointed as you are, but I'm upset. I was looking forward to seeing if they could actually pull this thing off, to close it out the way that we thought they should be able to do. I don't want to say with ease, but South Carolina did not look like any kind of overwhelming opponent. Spencer Rattler hasn't played like that at all year long. And the problems with the defense for Tennessee, I don't even know where to begin. I know there's been all kinds of message board, rumor mill stuff and whatnot, which is just the lowest common denominator form of coping, I feel like. You're just looking for any reason at all why your football team would just kind of poop the bed the way that they did. But on top of all that, because we'll have plenty of time to talk about the X's and O's of the game, not only is Ramon going to be here, but Mike Felder will help us understand just exactly what happened in that Tennessee defense from an execution standpoint at 11:20 today. The bigger story is almost, I think, Hendon Hooker, because of all the gut-wrenching moments that the 63-38 loss will cause people, to see him have his season ended, non-contact, ACL tear, that sucks worse than anything else I think we're going to talk about. I understand that people are going to put their fandom first, but you cannot be a fan of the University of Tennessee and not be a fan of what Hendon Hooker has done for this program. Not saying that anybody isn't. I'm just saying, like, in the moment, that's the thing that I'm more concerned about long term. Because it doesn't just affect the rest of this guy's year, because obviously he's done. But what his potential pro prospects might be, however you viewed him previously, however NFL scouting staffs viewed him previously, it's gonna take a hit. At best, maybe he's ready to start maybe he's medically cleared by this summer, by the time NFL teams start to report for training camp, things of the like. But I hate that so much for him, for his family, and for everybody who has come to lean so heavily on him because of the spectacular things that he's been able to do since he transferred to UT. So he put out the statement yesterday. I'm sure many of you have seen it at this point, but if you haven't, I'll read it for you here. From the University of Tennessee, quarterback Hendon Hooker sustained a torn ACL in his left knee on Saturday night. Hendon and the Hooker family appreciate all of your prayers and support. Hendon's incredible journey has been defined by faith, perseverance, and strength. Obstacles have never stood in the way of his path to greatness. Forever a Tennessee legend and the ultimate teammate, we know Hendon will come back stronger than ever as he embarks on a promising NFL future. Thank you, Hendo. That's from the Vol football social media accounts. So with all that being said, where do they go from here? Vanderbilt, what the hell? Did you watch that game?
I did.
Did you?
I was
haven't
between
seen
that
it
and the
yet.
TCU game.
I haven't seen the Vandy Florida game yet. I was keeping tabs of things on social media and just kind of box score scouting from my ESPN app. But what was it then that allowed them to pull off that kind of a win at home, now getting ready to host Tennessee without their starting quarterback, and a lot of questions that I thought we already had answers to?
They just dominated the game. They dominated. Anthony Richardson, a ton of accuracy issues for Florida, and Vanderbilt was just the better team. Vanderbilt fully deserved to win that game. They took advantage of some mistakes, recovered a muffed punt in the end zone for a touchdown. Their long snapper got all the way down to fall on the football, and they just kind of set the tone early on. All the breaks started going Vanderbilt's way, and they were just better. I mean, Anthony Richardson's numbers end up looking good, 25 of 42, 400 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. But he missed some throws in some really big moments, and Mike Wright, just more efficient, 10 of 16, 3 touchdowns, and a pick.
So now with the Vanderbilt Commodores riding a 2-game SEC winning streak, that's the next opponent here in Nashville for Tennessee. An interesting game for a variety of different reasons, and you kind of get a little bit of a glimpse of what the future may hold for you. Joe Milton at quarterback. He's had good moments. He's been playing in blowouts and things of the like. Tennessee has had a few opportunities for him to get in the game, and we know what his strengths and obvious weaknesses are as a player, but that you just hate that it arrived so soon for the sake of Hendon Hooker.
If there's any sort of silver lining you have to try to find, that would be it.
That this is the opportunity that you get to see, okay, can Joe Milton execute this offense properly?
You're going to learn more about the guy that you expect will be the starter next season, both in the regular season finale and whatever bowl game Tennessee plays now that they're out of the playoff picture.
3,135 yards, 27 touchdowns, 2 interceptions this season. He had 3 touchdown passes in the game against South Carolina. Ranks 9th nationally in total offense. Tennessee does this year with an average of 324.1 yards per game. Forgive me, that's specifically Hooker. That's not Tennessee in terms of the total offensive production. 2 years here with Tennessee, not a transfer under Heupel, a transfer under Pruitt that decided to stick it out in ways that obviously paid dividends, but quite the traumatic ending to what's been just a roller coaster ride of a season that's had so much fun in it. I thought it interesting. I was talking to, I was seeing some dialogue between 2 of my coworkers at A to Z Sports, Charlie Burris and Zach Reagan, and they had, I guess, earlier in the year, probably prior to the season beginning, said, would you trade a loss to South Carolina or Vanderbilt for a win over Florida and Alabama? And both of them said, yes, of course you would trade that. And now in retrospect, with the college football playoff on the line, you didn't realize just how much that would cost.
It does make it a more bitter pill to swallow. Like if you told Tennessee fans before the year, hey, 10-2 losses to Georgia and Bama, you're doing cartwheels. But
losses to Georgia and Bama, you said?
Yeah, right. Okay. 10-2 losses to Georgia and Bama.
Theoretically, yeah.
If you ask me best case scenario before the start of the season, I'm saying 10-2 with losses to Georgia and Bama. Now, if you told a Tennessee fan 10-2 with losses to Bama and South Carolina, you process that very differently. You're a lot more conflicted about, well, sure, losses to Georgia and South Carolina, not Bama. So you're trading off that loss to South Carolina for a win against Bama, and you would take that. But you're also conflicted because of what that means as far as what you could have accomplished if you just beat South Carolina. So it's a conflicting feeling right now for Tennessee fans that are going to have a hard. Now's not the time to tell them, hey, we told you 10-2 before the season. You'd say, yeah. Now's not the time. You let the dust kind of settle on what was a really disappointing weekend, and then you reset a little bit after the year and say, okay, you know what? They're way ahead of schedule.
I just feel so bad. Like I legitimately feel bad. Because it's something that this part of the country wants so badly, and it was right there. And so for that to happen the way that it did, not a competitive result, that's the thing that I think hurts worse than anything, or the thing I would imagine hurts worse than anything, is that you flatly weren't in that game. The defense never gave them a chance. And that on the part of South Carolina to lose to Shane Beamer, of all people, after as much fun as has been made of him and the locker room dancing and the TikToks and all these different things. Spencer Rattler, projected number 1 overall pick at a certain point in time when he was at Oklahoma, lost the job at Oklahoma, has to transfer, doesn't have a good season at South Carolina, and all of a sudden 6 touchdowns on your neck.
The game of his life. I mean, literally the best game of his career by far.
He called it one of the most impressive wins in college football history in the postgame. Did you see some of the comments from him? Anyway, Ramon Foster is going to return to us in studio, and we'll kind of see how he's processing these things as if he didn't spend enough time doing it this morning. We'll also welcome your phone calls on Tennessee's loss to South Carolina and what you think this means moving forward. 615-737-1045. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. We're presented by Spring Hill Heating and Cooling around here. Visit springhillac.com. Everybody does hurt today. It's a tough scene. Ramon Foster hanging out in studio with us, 6 to 10 a.m. Ramon, Kayla, and Will. How you feeling, bud?
This song. I thought this was the one Shafe saved of me when I was singing Everybody. It sounded like cats screeching.
You go full karaoke on it?
And I didn't know, of course, Shafe is going to save almost anything and use it against you at a later date.
Sicko.
Yes, that's the word, sicko.
Yeah,
but everybody hurts.
Today is an unpleasant day. Yesterday, a more unpleasant day for Vols fans here, far, wherever you are. I think that the situation for me, though, Ramon, is that, and I open with this, they weren't in it. Like, they just flatly weren't in it. The defense never gave them a chance. What the hell do you make of that performance on that side of the ball before we kind of flesh this thing out?
On the defensive side?
Yeah.
Buck, listen to me. The guy hadn't played a game like that since he was at Oklahoma, Spencer Rattler.
Yeah.
Hadn't played like that since, I don't think, ever, okay? And I think this is who we expected coming into the SEC. When I saw him, and I said this in our show, when I saw him do the twirly hand, like, let's keep going thing, I was like, oh, we're in trouble today. He couldn't be stopped. The defense, man, the two games in which we lost was this. Georgia couldn't get pressure, couldn't stop the passes from guys we hadn't really heard of like this. We saw them do uncharacteristic thing. Maybe not Georgia as much, but this isn't South Carolina Stilo at all. Couldn't get pressure and couldn't operate the way we needed to on offense too, as far as like getting that quick strike right back consistently. To go, 5 for 5 on drives?
Yeah.
Like unacceptable on all levels, man. To be without one of your starters for whatever reasons also played a part into it. Say what you want to about it, but I'm sure there was a little bit of hangover because it seemed like that happened maybe Friday evening, Saturday morning or something like that as far as Jeremy Banks goes. But again, I could use every excuse in the book, Buck, by saying the talent's not there. We got to wait till the coach. We wait till the recruits get in and their players are better than ours. But South Carolina hadn't done that entirely at all, man. And I just kind of say, well played. The script was good. But he got the ball, 1,000. I was counting it myself at home, 1,001. 1,002, and it was gone. Mm-hmm. The way our guys was playing bail defense at the cornerback position wouldn't allow a rush to get there. I don't know if they were scared of the speed that South Carolina have, which I've never heard of this year.
They would be the first.
You see what I'm saying? I was just like, where's the speed for you to be playing off that soft? And then, of course, I said to myself, why are we playing man then if that's the case? Let's go more zone. And then me personally, I'm a former offensive lineman, always an offensive lineman, okay? By the way, Twitter OL got together this weekend and dumped on people that said that offensive linemen give up stance clues. And I'm like, you know what? Shove it. We give up everything, okay? So stop it. But with that being said, I always go a defensive lineman, and I admire what J.J. Watt brought to the league. This, to me, was this. The Watt swat, as much as you hate to see it, but if you're going to block a guy that flawlessly, get your hands in the passing lanes. We didn't really capitalize on that much at all. I was thinking to myself, why are y'all still going upfield defense? Just get to a point, keep him in the box, let him tap that ball all day long and bat it down as much as you can. At least do something up front. Heck, I think he was perfect throughout the game, the way it seemed, Buck. Spencer Rattler, that is.
Well, it was gross because they were 8 of 11 on third down in particular. It's just not a sustainable way to exist. And you mentioned Watt and swatting. Did you see the interception your boy made for the Steelers yesterday?
TJ? Oh, my gosh.
My God, I've never seen an athletic play like that in my life.
I need more of that this weekend.
Yeah, you're probably going to get it.
Come on, Titans. Do that for me. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Let's go.
We'll have plenty of time to talk about that as the week progresses. So I think that there's a lot of different things there because Tim Banks has got a couple of times this year.
Yeah.
It has felt like. Now, obviously, what Georgia has at its disposal is a much different proposition than what South Carolina has been or has shown up to that point Saturday night. And I do think that Tim Banks has done a relatively good job compared to expectation, but now the expectations have changed.
Yeah, they have.
Ramon, congratulations on a 9-win season being a disappointment. That's what I told Lucas this morning. You know what I'm saying? Like
that to me, and again, I saw somebody say, don't play the small violin. No, it's none of that. But I think for the most part, everybody that's a Vols fan said this. If we go back to the summertime, because we didn't know what Hendon was going to be.
Yeah.
You said, give me one better than last year.
Just one.
I think that's what we were asking for.
I thought 8 wins was completely reasonable.
I went 8-4 on one, and I went 9-3 on the other.
Okay.
And here I am. We're 9-2 with a potential to go 10, depending on what Joe looks like. And yeah, I know. If we win that game, this is a non-discussion right here. You know what I'm saying?
Well, the Vandy game, there are 2016 level flashbacks that are happening around here, Lucas. There's some BVS that's palpable in the air.
I don't think right now is the time to have that conversation.
Yeah. What conversation?
The conversation of, well, if we told you 10-2 before the year.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I'm with you on
I think
that.
you give it a little bit. I mean, you wait for the Vanderbilt game. You see how things play out with the bowl game, because it's going to be telling of this program in this moment right now how they react against Vanderbilt.
Well, let's hear from Josh Heupel on that idea, the idea that you need to let this one hurt a little bit.
For us in this program, this one needs to hurt on the way back, and needs to hurt the guys that aren't on this trip that will be in our building tomorrow afternoon and be there on Monday. For us to grow as a program, you got to look at this opportunity and understand what happened and let it hurt and remember that as you move forward and let it help you grow.
The problem, though, is a lot of these guys who are going to remember this hurt, there's going to be turnover.
Yeah.
A substantial amount of turnover. Like Hendon Hooker's career is done here.
Yep.
We have talked about a lot of the attrition that is getting ready to happen in this roster, and they have done well to recruit and kind of prepare themselves for that. But that, I almost, when I heard him say that the first time, I'm like, yeah, I understand the sentiment. Yeah. You want that to resonate. You want them to know what it feels like so they don't ever want to feel like this again. Except the problem is there's only going to be a lot of these guys who are not coming back, who are just going to continue to have this linger like a bad smell around their senior year career.
Yeah. I'm thinking of Hyatt's gone, Darnell, Carvin gone, Hendon gone. Just in general,
Tillman should be
Tillman,
right?
Ramel, is he even coming back? You got Fant. You also have other tight end too. Like there's a lot that's going to be missing in a sense. But I say this: a lot of the young guys that they recruited in this past cycle had a decent class, didn't play. Like Addison Nichols, I'm looking at him. Okay, he's going to fill in somewhere for somebody. Maybe at left guard that they had on a recruiting class last year. They end up, I'm hoping, close out another tackle at some position too that's able to start and come in. But from right guard, center, and left tackle, I think they're fine. But just in general, there has to be development. There has to be a step as far as defensively. There has to be a challenge of whether it's young guys at cornerback that is coming in to kind of, look, we got to pick this up and sustain this. And just overall smarts of play, too. You know what I'm saying? Like, in a game like this where you're not getting much push, I just continue to say, where are we evolving as far as the football knowledge on the defensive side of the ball? The offense, I hope, can sustain, whether it's Joe Milton or Nico Iamaleava. This should be interesting coming back as far as the skill set and the plan of the game plan for the offense.
One of my Ramon Foster is hanging out here with us, 6 to 10 a.m. Ramon, Kayla, and Will is where you can hear the big fella, as well as the Ramon Foster Show wherever you get your podcasts. Yay. If you want a little extra NFL flavor. What am I to do with Kamal Haddon?
Don't.
What am I supposed to do with that guy? Because Ramon, I'm not even invested that way, and he pissed me off the way that he was acting.
Well, it's one thing to lose the battle and you just say, you know what, I'm going to make a play to make up for this. We never got to play. We never got to play.
It was so bad.
I've had a problem with this on any team. I'm talking about any player that does these types of things. And immediately I'd be like, dude, what are we talking about? You see the scoreboard? Like, that's all he had to do. Anybody that was guarding, he was guarding and he was talking, just point to the scoreboard. This is all because of you. Okay, that's what it's just, I love the attitude. I love what it can actually bring. But in those moments to where you're probably getting more out of breath talking crap than actually playing, it was no need for that. It's like being aware. There was no self-awareness in that one, Buck.
Well, because I think there's a fine line, right? Because I like attitude. I want more of that. But there's a difference between Spencer Rattler having attitude in ways that turn people off, because he clearly has a little bit of swagger about him for reasons that are unknown to me beyond this last performance that he's just coming off of. So it's justified in the moment versus Kamal Hadden and, obviously being a goat, the wrong kind of goat in that particular situation, jawing at Shane Beamer on the sidelines when you're the person who is out there being a liability for your team. So, I try to be cognizant of the differences between that, but I couldn't help but get upset in that moment, and then just feel kind of discouraged because they had it was all right there.
Yeah,
it was all right there.
It was, man, and of course, like you said, the BVS always pops up, the battered Vols syndrome. But let me tell you,
we're gonna have to make a new commercial. We gotta have to make a new commercial. It's no longer the too many men on the field against LSU in 2016. Now we have a new layer to add to the battered Vols syndrome.
We do, but this ain't all bad the way I look at it. I look at it in the sense of, okay, who said you was going to be here? You're supposed to have sanctions out of the wazoo when it comes down to the NCAA investigation. You didn't know what your offense is going to be. A head coach nobody had actually knew about, believed in, and didn't expect the offense to work. 2 years in a row it has worked in the SEC. I say to myself, if he can recruit well, and it's shown that he possibly can, if you get the guys that are not just 4 stars, but high 4 stars, if you're able to close out on this DN out of North Carolina that's been a crystal ball to Tennessee, then that does some good for you too. In the trenches is where it's always going to be won at. This game right here was lost in the trenches on both sides. Even I'm looking at Spraggins. Spraggins, since the Georgia game, has kind of been a little bit of a turnstile in his pass sets and the way he's protected. Either it's holding calls or pressure over him. Your film follows you. It's the growth of a program. That's one thing I say is, as big of a Alabama hater as I am, I don't even have to announce that. One thing you do have to tip your cap to and just say respect is the level in which Nick Saban has sustained this. It's one thing to be the big dog. It's one thing to stay the big dog, though. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's where I feel like where we are as a school is, man, y'all still Tennessee. But it's also the side of it of, well, are you really this good? So let me see. I felt like that was the game plan we got this weekend. It was one of both. Are you still the old Tennessee? And if you are, show me. And South Carolina did it.
No,
Vols are back.
Oh no, Phil! You couldn't even. What is your objective with this today? Because you don't want any. You seem to be hell bent on sinking into this one a little bit more than either of us were.
I know.
Well, and it's important to talk about the future and how Tennessee can avoid this happening with the depth and the talent moving forward. But I'm still hanging out in the moment here of this week and how they're going to respond on Saturday. Because if they don't respond on Saturday, and I know they're not going to have Hendon Hooker, and we'll get to see Joe Milton, and we'll see what Joe Milton will look like with an array of receivers that he'll have. Some of them next year, some of them he won't. But if they don't respond on Saturday, or they respond in a negative way, then we're talking about a lot more fundamental issues here when looking at the offseason and the future of the program. So I'm still kind of stuck in this week. How are they going to look against Vanderbilt, a team that they should still roll despite the fact that Hendon Hooker's not playing?
I don't know, man. Don't sleep on the mighty Commodores, baby. They're out for blood here lately.
100%. They're playing with no regard. Yeah. Like, that's just what they are. If they lose, they're supposed to.
Reckless abandon, and then you go out there and dominate Florida at home. It's tremendous.
Where do you even look at them, Buck?
Oh, I don't know what to do with them. I have no. Oh, Florida or
Florida.
Florida is a weird situation because the inaccuracy thing for Anthony Richardson, it seems like it's almost inconsistent in how often he is inaccurate that way.
Joe Milton, like last year.
No, it's probably as close a comparison as we do have because Milton has all of the physical attributes, all of the God-given ability in the world, and does struggle to execute the things that should be a layup. Anthony Richardson I don't look at him, he's obviously a high-end, hyper-athletic player at the quarterback position. I don't necessarily look at him in that same kind of worldview, I guess, as I look at Joe Milton, but they're probably closer than I want to give Milton or Richardson credit for.
Right.
I don't know what you do with them because they have been a roller coaster ride all year long in ways that they're probably the most inexplicable team in the SEC this year, beyond Texas A&M,
Ooh.
which is a different science experiment.
Never thought we'd see the day.
It's delightful.
It is. Anybody but us, baby.
Where does Hendon Hooker, where is his place in this program's history? Because it's a 2-year sample size, but the impact and importance of his presence here for whatever trajectory they're now on. How do you kind of view his time here now that it's obviously come to an unfortunate end with the ACL tear? Does he have a place in Tennessee history just because of the significance of the turnaround that he seems to have been at the forefront of?
100%. Like, to me, he's good in any era. Okay? Like Peyton Manning's era, he can have conversation with Peyton. He can have conversations with T. He can have conversations with Dobbs.
Yeah.
He can have conversations with anybody that's been a legend here at Tennessee. Al Wilson. We can, Reggie's era, like the Joey. It's like he's in that era of he's a god now.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like when he walk on campus, you understand what it is and what he's done. And I think it's also this side of it too, as far as Vols fans go, and just probably all football fans. When it comes down to how good you are, it really lays on the shoulders of a quarterback. I remember specifically watching, like former Tel Ainge. You are the representation. You are the CEO of the University of Tennessee, not just the football team, not just the football program and sports. You are the walking billboard for what Tennessee is. And I think that's what Hendon kind of put in front of everybody and just kind of let you know. Say what you want to about Stetson Bennett, but Georgia hadn't been what they've been without a quarterback like him since. Even Stafford, as awesome as he was, what was he, number 1 and number 2 overall quarterback? Number one. He ain't what Stetson Bennett is in college.
Yeah.
Tebow, not what anything he needed to be in the NFL, but in college, he was that guy. And I think that's where Hendon's kind of put himself, despite not winning the Natty. You know what I'm saying? Like all of those things.
No. There's levels.
Yeah,
there's levels to the names that you've just put him alongside.
Yeah.
But you understand that there is always going to be a deep love and admiration for what it is that guy was a part of wherever this ends up leading moving forward, which of course becomes the big question. And it starts this Saturday here in Nashville against Vandy.
Basically, there's a certain breakthrough with this program that people will always associate Hendon Hooker with.
Yes, sir.
And that's always going to keep him in a very positive light.
To have Peyton say he's my favorite guy.
That's wild.
Who has Peyton said that about since he left?
I don't remember. Well, I think he does a pretty good job of like not being like umbrella or not umbrella. Helicopter quarterback.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like a helicopter parent a little
Yeah.
bit. Like hovering over too much of what it is, because I think that can cause problems sometimes. But yeah, that's high praise.
Yeah.
Always high praise for Ramon, Kayla, and Will. 6 to 10 a.m. here on 104.5 The Zone, Monday through Friday, in the Ramon Foster Show, which is done daily wherever you get podcasts. Subscribe, rate, and review. Buddy, thanks for hanging around.
Buck, this always goes too fast.
Well, we have fun.
We do.
We have a good time.
That's my guy.
We'll have more fun phone calls coming up next on the Tennessee situation, problems, disappointment, Hendon Hooker. We will allow you to vent. 615-737-1045. Open phone lines next. Welcome back. Buck Rising here with you until 1 o'clock. Different kind of week this week with Thanksgiving on the horizon. Titans off today, practicing Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. So no Mike Vrabel press conference to play for you later. Our buddy Mike Felder will be here later on in the show. Sorry, a little rusty after a long weekend off and no work yesterday. I didn't know what to do with myself on Sunday without a game. I always have probably one or two of those a year when they're on a bye or Thursday night football. It's just it's like the Ricky Bobby thing. I don't know what to do with my hands.
I knew exactly what to do with myself.
Did you move from your couch at all yesterday between World Cup and actual football?
Absolutely not.
Excellent. Speaking of which, we'll get to the phone calls on the Vols here in just a second. Knock Trop on YouTube, Facebook Live, Twitter, YouTube, Twitch. You can stream the radio show. Hang out with us in studio if you like. He says, Vandy wins. The talk is about how bad Florida is. Sounds familiar. Titans beat Green Bay, and the rest of the country only talks about how far the Packers have fallen. That is not even a remotely relevant comparison. The Titans have played in an AFC championship game.
You're really looking for something that's not there.
They have been to the playoffs in 5 of the last 6 years. Vandy beat an SEC opponent for the first time in how long? When they beat
9
Kentucky?
years. Oh, Kentucky or Vandy?
Vandy
Kentucky or Florida, I mean.
beat Kentucky for the first an SEC opponent in Kentucky for the first time in how long? It had been like
as far as it was a 26-game SEC losing streak, and they haven't beaten Florida since James Franklin was here in 2013.
Okay, so think about that. That is an unbelievably terrible comparison. It's not even remotely close. It is great for Vandy, though. And also it can be like, what the hell is wrong with Florida?
Yeah.
Both of those things can be true. But let's talk about Tennessee. John in Lebanon up next. Hey, John.
Hey, fellas, how you doing? Love the show. Thanks for taking my calls.
Yes, sir.
Guys, what we witnessed was another bad, no-show Tim Banks defense. Okay, he rushes 4 men basically the whole game. If you watch the whole game, he's rushing 4 men and sitting back playing prevent defense. There's very little blitzes, very little off-the-edge rushes. When we did finally do some off-the-edge, we had some success. It's the worst defense that we've had since the Derek Dooley days. I mean, there's no question about it. The main question I have going forward is what will Heupel do going forward with our defense? And I'll hang up and listen to your answer.
Thank you very much for the call, John. We do appreciate it. I mean, Tim Banks is not like an overarching problem. It's popped up a couple of times. He's gotten got a couple of times in terms of the chess match that is coaches versus coaches on the field.
To be honest, the conversation around Tim Banks has been relatively positive this season.
I would agree with that assessment. And listen, they are not by no means a great defense. They played horrifically on Saturday night.
It was as bad as he's talking about Derek Dooley years.
Yeah.
He's talking about 2012. Derek Dooley loses Justin Wilcox, who's the defensive coordinator at Tennessee, a good coach, to go take the head coaching job at Cal. Dooley replaces Wilcox with Sal Sinceri, the outside linebackers coach and assistant head coach at Alabama, who comes in and engineers a historically bad Tennessee defense in 2012. This brought back shades of the Sal Sinceri 2012 experience, although I don't know that Sal Sinceri had a single game as bad as this.
Yeah,
maybe giving
this
up
was
50 points to Troy in 2012.
Well, and you try and 50 points to Troy. God.
Overtime win where Tyler Bray set multiple program records at quarterback, but they just kept giving up touchdowns to the Troy Trojans. So it's up there. I mean, it is right there. You force one punt. And
it's so bad.
You force one punt.
5 straight touchdown drives.
Every drive other than the one punt that you forced was a touchdown drive. And I believe that was the first offensive series for South Carolina out of halftime. Was a quick 3-and-out. Other than that, they scored a touchdown on every drive. Tennessee had no answer.
So, speaking of blitz percentage, do you know where Tennessee ranks in terms of average blitz percentage this year in college football?
Top 10?
No. They're 93rd.
That's surprising. Yeah, it's because they found their success has often come from being able to generate that type of pressure when you consider some of the weaknesses and deficiencies that we've known are there in the defensive backfield all season.
On average, they blitz 5.25% of the time.
Yeah, I think that's a problem for Tim Banks, who took over in this job and talked about wanting to play offense on defense and taking an aggressive mentality, trying to kind of take on the personality of Tennessee's offense on the defensive side with blitzes and sending pressure and just constantly making life difficult for opposing offenses. That's where they've looked their best, when this front seven is stepping up and playing well. And they've really gotten away from that, I guess, this year when you give me those numbers. I'm surprised by those numbers.
He was well below average in this last game. He blitzed 2.56% of the time against South Carolina. So to the caller's point, they just weren't interested in for some reason. They felt that they needed the numbers advantage so badly in coverage that the extra pressure to them apparently wasn't worth it.
Well, the run game wasn't a threat. South Carolina was without its top two running backs. They didn't have to run the football on Saturday. So Tennessee, it wasn't like they were taking advantage of loaded boxes. Like you said, Tennessee was dropping people in coverage all night. They're going man, they're going zone. So that
way
is
more man. To hear Ramon tell it, like a far higher percentage of man coverage than otherwise. If you had scouted them, I don't want to dismiss the scouting job that Tennessee did. I'm just saying, if you watch South Carolina this year, you're not necessarily fearful of South Carolina's team speed that way, is the larger point.
Well, but real quick, the point is, we knew that this team, defense could be a weakness within this team, the defensive backfield. We've known that. But they've never looked as lost and as unprepared and without an answer as much as they did on Saturday. That is the issue for people, is the falling off of a cliff nature of it.
Weakness is fine, but single-handedly costing the program an opportunity at the college football playoff is a different conversation entirely.
I mean, put it this way. If you told someone 63-38 is the final, anybody that doesn't know who won that game thinks, okay, wow, well, Tennessee
rolled them.
Sure, but you tell a Tennessee fan that, don't tell him who won. He's thinking, man, we gave up 38 points
to South Carolina.
That South Carolina offense. Okay, glad we got the win, but come on. Tim Banks, what are you doing? No, it was the other way around. Give up 63.
Big O calling us from Rome, Tennessee. What's happening?
A great day, Daryl. Thank y'all for the time. Y'all have a great show. Listen, I've appreciated watching Tennessee so much this year. I think they have overachieved. I'm very disappointed in what's happened, about them losing, but listen, I think their problem is road trouble, just like Alabama. They're not the same team on the road that they are on at home, and I think they just struggling there, and that's what they got to overcome. I'll hang up and listen. Everybody have a great Thanksgiving. Thank you.
You as well, Big O. Thank you so much for the call. Let's talk about the environment that Williams-Brice Stadium was, because they made it they went out of their way during the broadcast to include everything that was going on pregame at Williams-Brice and Kirk Herbstreit. That's the thing he kept hammering home throughout the course of the broadcast more than anything. It is difficult to play on the road in the SEC. So we'll continue to discuss this. More of your phone calls coming up next. You'll hear from Josh Heupel and a few others involved in the proceedings. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone.
It is 11:02. Good morning from the Superbook.com Sports Desk. I'm Lucas Panzica. The Tennessee Vols are out of the playoff race after giving up 63 points and 606 total yards of offense on Saturday in a 63-38 loss at South Carolina. A bad weekend got worse on Sunday as the program announced Tennessee quarterback Hendon Hooker suffered a torn ACL at the end of the game, and his Tennessee career is over. Joe Milton will step in as the starter as the Vols look to close out the regular season at Vanderbilt this weekend, who won their second straight SEC game on Saturday, a 31-24 result over Florida. The U.S. men's national team's first World Cup appearance in 8 years kicks off this afternoon in the group stage against Wales. Nashville SC defender Walker Zimmerman expected in the starting lineup. Kickoff in Qatar is at 1 p.m. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once in your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Second down on this Monday. Welcome in. Welcome back. If you've been sticking around with us so far, we're happy to have you either way. Going to be happy to have Michael Felder of Stadium, Bleacher Report. Mike's doing all kinds of different college football and NFL draft analysis across the sports media landscape. He'll be here in about 15 minutes from now. Tell us what happened to Spencer Rattler against the Tennessee defense. What happened to the Tennessee defense against Spencer Rattler, I guess is probably the way that I should say it. And react to what this means moving forward. I'd be curious to see what Mike thought of the Vanderbilt-Florida result as well, the way that they dominated, as Lucas said they did. I have not seen the game itself yet, but 31-24 over the Gators here in Nashville.
Ran all over him.
Congratulations to Vandy, man. That's so cool.
Held Florida to 45 rush yards.
All right, safe to assume no Checker Neyland, or not Checker Neyland. Is it Memorial Stadium?
Memorial Gym is their
Memorial
arena.
Gym.
It's
right.
First Bank Stadium.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, they got the money on it this
That's
year.
right. But yes, Checker Vandy, probably not a go. I haven't seen that picking up much steam.
I would find it, I don't know what would be comedically better. If they did it and lost, like if you checkered Vanderbilt and lost, or if you... No, there's no scenario in which that ends well. I don't know what would happen if they lost to Vanderbilt.
Yeah, it would be disastrous. And it would bring back shades of other years of heartbreak in that fashion. But I am of the opinion that if you are capable of doing something like that to an opponent, to a rival stadium, then I always think you should do it. But I don't know if it's going to happen.
So you would advocate to checker Vandy even after having 63 points put on your head?
I just think there's not that many situations in which that is feasible. And this is one of those situations where Tennessee fans could pull that off.
You are
without
asking
question.
You are asking for some karma if you do that.
Not a big karma guy. Maybe that's what it is.
I don't know, bud. I think it's the real. Well, actually, if karma was real, I would have been struck down by lightning many, many years ago. So maybe that's the counterpoint. But the situation for Tennessee in Columbia over the weekend was very bizarre for a variety of different reasons, because you don't ever expect, or at least this season, you never expected it to look like that, particularly against this South Carolina team. The Spencer Rattler, I don't even want to call. It's not even a phenomenon, because it's just one blip on an otherwise lackluster career or season that he's had so far. For him to come in with that few touchdowns on the season, and then almost double up his scoring total to now have 14 touchdowns to 9 interceptions on the year. I mean, it's kind of crazy that they allowed him to get back in the game that way and to have a rhythm in that kind of way, because he's just not been a good player. And he was making throws that, to me, like you understand why Spencer Rattler was at one time in his career viewed as a pro prospect, like a high-level pro prospect. And there's obviously been a bunch of different things that have happened since then. But it's as good as I've seen him look in quite some time. Spencer Rattler looked better in that game than Will Levis has all season. Fair or foul?
Oh, easily.
Easily.
I mean, that's not even a conversation.
I'm ignoring I'm not even like 6 touchdown passes. I'm just saying from an execution, from a decisiveness standpoint, the guy who is talked about still, despite having an incredibly down season at Kentucky, Will Levis is still being discussed as a first-round pick, not a first overall pick, but a first-round pick. Spencer Rattler looked better than he has at any point this year in SEC play.
I mean, Kentucky hasn't even really sniffed breaking 30 points against an SEC opponent this year, and Rattler just hung 63 against a top 5 team.
Different offense, but I'm talking about the mechanics of playing quarterback.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, from what I saw from him, the confidence, it was just clear and obvious that he wasn't going to be stopped that day, and Tennessee sure as hell wasn't going to do it.
He was 30 of 37, 438 yards, 6 touchdowns, no turnovers.
So a previous caller, and we'll get to your phone calls momentarily, 615-737-1045 if you want to jump in. A previous caller brought up the struggles on the road for Tennessee this year, and I don't know that I would quite call them that. They did struggle for about a half at Pittsburgh. We know what the Georgia result was. The environment obviously played a role there, but as did the weather, as did Tennessee's own mistakes, and Georgia being overwhelming on defense throughout the course of that game. South Carolina, though, we've talked about the atmosphere at Williams-Brice Stadium several times on this show because I think the sandstorm thing is always cool. I think honestly in pregame it went on way too long. Like I was looking at my cell phone, the clock on my cell phone, like halfway through the whole introduction thing where they've got the mascot in the little cage and he's just kicking around and they're doing the whole dun dun dun.
Yeah, that's what they do.
Dun dun. It took too long. Okay, that's fine.
It's every week.
I'm not. If I wanted to be a part of that, I would have gone to the game.
They love that chicken.
Sir Big Spur. It would have made me so happy. Made me so happy if they'd actually gotten the nickname changed through.
I've been to Williams-Brice.
Chris Fowler had to say cock commander on a national televised broadcast.
I've been to Williams-Brice once. I was watching the Tennessee-South Carolina game in 2014 in Columbia, and I was with one of my closest friends that went to Clemson, lifelong diehard Clemson fan, who obviously hates South Carolina with every fiber of his being. So every time South Carolina gets a first down, whatever it might be, they play the rooster sound, over the PA, and he just the gritted teeth, clenched fists. Like, oh, they love that chicken. So I always think about that when I see Sir Big Spur.
So do we feel that the environment actually played a role in their struggles? Because that didn't it was clearly rocking, and the crowd got into it the more that they continued to roll after about because they traded touchdowns in the early going, and then after about the third consecutive touchdown drive, because he had 3 touchdown passes in the first quarter. You're looking around and saying, okay, the crowd is clearly the blood is in the water. They feel it. Everybody else is here and present for this, and now they're locked in. Because during the pregame, Lucas, I don't know if you caught this. I don't know where you watched the game, but Rocky Top was drowning out Sandstorm
for a little bit
for the band for a considerable portion of the pregame hype. And clearly there were Tennessee fans there. They were singing Rocky Top, the whole thing. So I thought, okay, it's not as one-sided as it might seem based on the production that they opened the broadcast with. But still, the crowd just continued to amplify what it is that they were doing. And I don't know how much of that to attribute to what it is that happened at Tennessee because it's on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, exactly. It's different from the Georgia game because Tennessee's offense was out of rhythm the whole time. That's obviously because you're dealing with probably the best defense in football in Georgia. But the crowd, you talk about the amount of pre-snap penalties the offense had in Athens. Yeah. The crowd played a role. It was the most rocking you've ever seen Sanford Stadium. But it wasn't really an issue for Tennessee's offense, though you could say the way South Carolina's offense was just feeding off of the crowd. They were just working in conjunction with one another. So
Rattler for sure was.
Yeah, in that way, I do think it had an impact because you're right. It shouldn't affect how you call, plays on defense, how you're able to communicate because the crowd shouldn't be at its loudest when you're playing defense. But there's something to be said for how South Carolina's offense kind of harnessed that momentum that was coming from what was a rocking crowd at Williams-Brice.
615-737-1045. John is in Gallatin, wants to talk about the Vols. Hey, John.
Hey, guys. Thanks for taking the call.
You're welcome. Go ahead.
Yeah, I really don't know where to start, honestly, but it just really demoralized. I was 13 when we won the national championship back in 1998. So I'm just not real sure, when will we have another opportunity like this again? I mean, college football playoff was right in front of us. All we had to do was take care of business, favored by 22.5 points. I mean, I just don't see how South Carolina is 25 points better than us. I mean, hell, Georgia only put up 27. I mean, and I would say Athens is more of a hostile environment than South Carolina is. So I'm just mind blown. I mean, I really am. Is Joe Milton the quarterback next year? Does he have another year of eligibility? And what are your thoughts on New Year's Six Day bowl game? Thanks for taking the call.
Well, thank you very much for the call, John. You speak for many people today. Absolutely. And God knows yesterday how many people woke up either hungover off of whatever they had been doing pregame or hungover off just a 63-point effort put on by a team that you were favored by 22.5 over. It was really shocking for a variety of different reasons. To your question about Joe Milton, yes, he is going to be favored as the starting quarterback for the Vols next year. He does have an additional year of eligibility now that Hendon Hooker's career as a college player is done. By the way, thank God for NIL. Thank God that Hendon Hooker actually made some money before whatever is going to happen now with his professional career, because that was the only thing that kind of cushioned how badly I felt for the kid. I mean, he's not really a kid; he's 4 years younger than me, but you understand what I'm saying. I was so appreciative that is a thing in that moment for somebody who has so much more to gain. But yeah, it is a left without answers loss, because you saw the kind of coping that was being done on the message boards and on social media after the fact. Was there some kind of feud between Jeremy Banks and Hendon Hooker? Did Jeremy Banks step on the tee in ways that he shouldn't say? Like, it's just the dumbest conversation I saw from nobody, because initially I thought I saw it from reputable people. I went back and checked this morning, and I didn't see as much of it as I thought was out there. But there was enough discourse being had during that game about, did something happen in the locker room, basically, that caused the defense to just quit? That was a thought that was gaining legitimate traction, and message boards in the SEC are a nightmare anyway, but you understand what I'm saying. Like, everybody's just looking for different ways to cope. And the answer, they just fell short. Mike Felder of Stadium going to join us, and we'll talk about the X's and O's of this. More of your phone calls coming up next. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. Some college football X's and O's. Vandy over Florida. South Carolina taken down at the time, number 5 Tennessee. College football playoff rankings come out in their next iteration tomorrow. We'll see just how much that loss cost UT and what they have to do to prepare for mighty Vanderbilt all of a sudden without at least Hendon Hooker as the starting quarterback. 615-737-1045. We can squeeze some more phone calls in until Mike gets here. Jason calling us from Murfreesboro today. Hey, Jason.
Hey guys, I got exactly what y'all need to hear for today. All right, so I want to say, to our future, our recruits, to all our current players that are coming back next year. Dude, we have a 2-year coach, and we beat so many under our low-ranked teams, and we're coming back next year. So those recruits, wouldn't you want to come and be with us and grow and win and beat Alabama again next year and beat all these top-ranked teams again next year? And then on the other side of that, I want to say, I'll tell you back. I can't remember what it was. I ain't going to hold you up, man.
Love that.
Hey, you know what? I appreciate that.
Happens to everybody.
What? Petering out on the phone?
Oh, forgetting something mid-sentence about what you were going to say?
Oh, my God.
Does that not happen to you on a weekly basis?
It happens to me in the middle of a segment. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, absolutely. That was very relatable by Jason.
Thank you, Jason. We appreciate you not bogging down the proceedings around here. So here's the thing, okay? Because I do understand what you're saying. It is about the building. It is about the growth. But it is also about the possibility of what could have been, right? Because not only is it a missed opportunity for the purposes of the college football playoff. All right, let's think about this at every layer. So no college football playoff in all likelihood unless, the sky falls down on TCU, on Michigan, on Ohio State. That result will obviously be decided this weekend, and we can move on. But it's about the fact that Hendon Hooker is not going to be in the Heisman Trophy conversation, unfortunately now because of the injury. Jalen Hyatt, complete non-factor all of a sudden against South Carolina in ways that were bizarre. So I appreciate why people are approaching this with an optimistic worldview after losing to South Carolina the way that you did, but it was right there in front of them. And I'm not really interested in the coping today. Mike Felder joins us now here on 104.5 The Zone. You can find him all over the place. He's doing stuff for Stadium. He's doing stuff for Bleacher Report. Mike is one of the hardest working people in the business. What were you as shocked by the Spencer Rattler coming out party as I was, and apparently this entire state of Tennessee?
Not shocked by Spencer Rattler being able to do what he did. He's been good. Lincoln Riley said Spencer Rattler's the best thrower of the football that he's ever coached. So that wasn't shocking, but being able to put it all together has been a problem for South Carolina.
Right.
It's been a problem for Spencer Rattler dating back to Oklahoma, and I think that Tennessee's really simple defense made things a lot easier for him. And so he knew where to go with the ball pre-snap. And it's funny because on the flip side, that's the thing that's made Tennessee so good this season. That's what got them up to 5. That's what got them up to 1. Is they were able to their offense made defenses simple. And somebody did that to them, and then all of a sudden you end up doubled up in the fourth quarter. I know they scored at the end to make it so it wasn't technically getting doubled up, but they were doubled up for most of that fourth quarter.
Well, that's the thing, because we've known what the defense is here all along, Mike, and it's they don't get exposed that often. Like, there are moments when Anthony Richardson will take it to him, and obviously Georgia did what they were able to do, and Spencer Rattler pre-snap, as you mentioned. It is a very simplistic defensive scheme put on top of the additional pressure that the rate of speed that the offense operates on, whatever effect that may actually have. But it hasn't looked like that in the last 2 years. I think that's the thing that kind of caught me up. It not just that they got taken for a ride. It's happened a couple of times. It's that they got taken for a ride that badly. So many missed assignments, so much poor execution, and guys just running wide open all over the place for an offense in South Carolina that, it doesn't scream to me team speed.
Yeah. They attack the middle really well, which is, I think, so much when we talk speed and space, people forget about the middle. They think about those sidelines, right? We talk so much about how Tennessee plays outside the numbers, but the reality is there's space in the middle too. If you can get people going outside, you can find space in the middle, and South Carolina found a lot of that space. And whether it was shallow crossers or intermediate crossers, or it was the guy running basically kind of, like a bang 8 and just going to get it. They did it. They did all those things, and it was a perfect storm. And I'll be honest, perfect storm for a desperate team. Like, it was a perfect storm for a desperate team. And that's what, to me, I would categorize South Carolina as a desperate football team, because they're now 7-4, but they were 6-3, they were 5-3, they were 5-4, and they're looking at their schedule and going, 6-4, and they're 6-4, and they're like, we got to get one more so that we don't have to go to Shreveport probably.
Yeah, we
got to get one more. And I don't think it's going to happen against Clemson, but maybe we can get this one. So this is a team that did feel desperate. They did feel like they had to make a move, and they made a heck of a move.
Sure as hell. Tennessee got on Saturday night in Columbia. Yeah. At In the Bleachers is where you can follow our buddy Mike Felder for the best X's and O's college football breakdowns and, cooking advice from time to time. The situation for Tennessee now, no Hendon Hooker. Joe Milton, who we understand the experience for, he's been playing in, blowout relief a lot of times and has looked a little cleaner with the execution when the result is well out of hand. But Vanderbilt, Mike, Vandy, the last 2 weeks, I have no idea what to make of Vanderbilt dominating Florida at the line of scrimmage that way.
That was unbelievable. That's the part that was wild to me, because Florida and you know what? You know what it is, Buck, is at this stage in the season, everybody's hurt, right? Everybody's tired, everybody's banged up. But, man, watching Utah get kind of manhandled, like their hair got kind of tasseled around by Florida, and then watching Vanderbilt stand up to them and puff their chest out, I was like, oh, no, what's going on? And it just, what a win for Vandy. I know you guys are in Tennessee. You can't. That Vandy win was just after, what is it, a 5-game losing streak, and then they go through and they beat Kentucky, who was ranked. They beat this Florida team, and they take care of business. Vandy and Tennessee, we might it's two completely different styles, but we might have a dogfight on our hands. That's one that's going to go on the main screen after Thanksgiving.
Oh, listen, if you earn main screen honors in the Felder household, that is a crowning achievement, to be certain. So let's talk about these contrasting styles. We've talked so much Tennessee throughout the course of the season, Mike. We are in Nashville. Vanderbilt is probably, what would you say, Lucas, about 1.5 miles from our doorstep right now?
Yeah, 7 minutes,
and
no traffic.
We barely give them any life whatsoever. So let's talk about what this matchup looks like, given what we've just seen from the Tennessee defense and what Vandy, certainly in the last couple of weeks, has shown that they are capable of on the ground.
Listen, Mike Wright, he ran for over 100 yards in the Kentucky game. Amazing. Then you throw in Ray Davis goes for over 100. He goes up for over 100 in back-to-back games, 3 games in a row, because Mizzou was in there as well. And I know Mizzou was a loss, but the reality of it is that you go over South Carolina, not Mizzou. South Carolina, Kentucky, Florida. He goes for over 100 in all those 3 games. This team, they're a team that it's pick your poison. Pick your poison when it comes to the run game. Now that they know who they are, Lee's doing a great job, and the key is going to be finding a way to slow down Tennessee, and that's going to be a defensive. That's on the defense. I don't know that Tennessee's going to be slowed down again in the same way, but they're going to make you be one-dimensional. I think that's the big reason why Vanderbilt was able to beat Florida, is they made Florida have to throw the football. 45 rushing yards they gave up?
Yeah.
Crowded the box, didn't let them do anything. Then they had to throw. And with having to throw, you can look at the number and say they threw for 400 yards, but the reality of it is those weren't throws that they wanted to make. And they missed a lot of those throws, which I think is important to note, because when you miss that many throws, the numbers can, kind of amalgamate, add up to something. But the reality of it is, if you only have 25 catches for 400 yards and it's not a consistent thing, then you've got a problem. And that's the big thing for me. This is, and Buck, this is a tangent, but it's the same as the number, the 400 yards doesn't matter, because it's the same as with Michigan fans talking about time of possession. If you win time of possession or you win passing yards, but you lose the game in the case of Florida, or you are only up by 3 points in the case of Michigan, that number doesn't matter because you're not doing it.
At In the Bleachers is where you follow Mike Felder. So let's pivot wholesale here, because we're going to take up enough airspace with Vandy, Tennessee throughout the course of the week. USC beating UCLA in what was an incredible game to watch, and Oregon over Utah in an equally incredible game to watch, but a different flavor of things. Did you enjoy one more than the other, or was it just, the best of college football? Give it to me.
I weep for Utah. They were so close.
Pour
they
one
were
out.
Right there. I love this football team. I wonder if Keithy was there, what this game would look like. They've got their own issues. But the USC UCLA game was awesome. It had my favorite play of the week. And Lincoln Riley, I mean, this guy, put him down, certified genius. He took Jordan Addison, who is his best wide receiver. And USC at this point, it's the third quarter. It's third quarter, 9 minutes to play. They're down 24-20. And they don't substitute after the first down play. They pick up 8 yards on first down. Second down and 2. They already have a play ready to rock and roll, where the running back comes out and he's the wide receiver. Jordan Addison, who's their best wide receiver, he's already got a trophy he's already got a trophy in his house.
That's right.
He lines up next to the quarterback as the running back. UCLA is looking around like, what are we supposed to do? They don't get lined up for the play. USC runs the play. Jordan Addison scores a touchdown on a wheel route, and we're done. Like, that's it. The game's over. I know they score more points, but the game's over. Because if you don't know where you're supposed to be, you can't win. And that's the position that USC put UCLA in all night.
They both were so much fun to watch. It's the rare. So I had a Thursday night game this week, Mike. So I had a whole weekend to myself. I don't think that's happened since September. It is rare a good enough college football game to keep me on the couch and going out and enjoying my first weekend off in God knows how long. But I was locked in. I refused to leave my home as these two things were playing out late on Saturday night. A big one coming up this week. There's a couple of good games coming up this weekend, but obviously the main event, I don't think anybody would argue, is Michigan at Ohio State. Playoff ranking implications, obviously, very much in this one. What do you like about the matchup? How do you think it will play out based on what we've seen from these two teams? Because Ohio State playing Maryland that closely, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about Ohio State, Mike. And I understand what they are. I understand what they want to do. I know the talent that they have, but just results like that throughout the course of the season, and even keeping it close for as little a time as they did against teams like Northwestern. I wonder what you've made of the Ohio State experience.
Okay, so let me ask you this: what can Michigan do that Maryland did?
Oh, what can Michigan do that Maryland did? I mean, play high level defense. Michigan probably the best defense in the country, not named Georgia, right?
Offensively. Scoring.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Like, Michigan's not going to do any of I watched the game. I watched Michigan play, and I watched them both play. And I tell you what, between the wide receivers being bad and J.J. McCarthy throwing off-target balls, they can't do what Talia did. Talia hit his ball spot on. He made plays, and he was able to create in the run game, which J.J. McCarthy may be able to do. But to me, I just think that Michigan's not that dangerous offensively. And, by the way, and knock on wood, I hope we get to see Corum play. But so we're still waiting on some feedback from that, because he went down with an injury. But this is a team, from a Michigan standpoint, if Ohio State decides, let's just put on the full court press. Listen, you guys are in the SEC. You play when Kentucky decides from a basketball standpoint, when they decide we're gonna go max effort, play full court press, and try to create turnovers, the rest of the SEC is like, okay, we might be in a little bit of trouble.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I think that we've seen Ohio State try to work on things. And by the way, shout out to Hayden, who ran for almost 150 yards as their third-string running back. So they've had 3 running backs run for over 100 yards this season. Ohio State has pieces. They are trying to find out, like, this is a team that they essentially have a fully stocked pantry, and we're going into Thanksgiving now, but they got a fully stocked pantry. They're just looking at ingredient combinations to figure out the best way to bake a cake. And Michigan only has one way to bake a cake, and that's going to be the interesting part here. And they're going to walk in, and especially with Jim Knowles, that defense, they're going to have 9 guys in the box. They'll have 11 guys within 8 yards, and they're going to have 9 guys dedicated to run unless, that tight end goes out for a pass. But we know that tight end's going to actually block. So every single player for Michigan that blocks creates an Ohio State defender that's dedicated to the run. And that's the part I don't think people think about. I don't think people realize that. But for the quarterback handing it off, you get a defensive player added to the run. For the running back going, you get a linebacker added to the run. For the tight end blocking, you get a linebacker added to the run. For the other tight end blocking, you get a safety added to the run. You're adding people to the run game when you run with 7 blockers, 8 blockers. And that's the part I don't think that folks think about nearly enough.
But, Mike, was that not the exact same approach last year? Michigan baked that exact same cake against Ohio State, and it was a 42-27 win.
And last year they were a terrible defense that didn't know which linebacker was supposed to be in the game. This year they are not that.
He's Mike Felder. I mean, this got to be your favorite holiday coming up, right? Thanksgiving?
Oh, listen, my birthday's Friday.
Oh. Well, wait. Give him the full treatment. Happy early birthday to our good friend Mike Felder.
Yeah, no, this is my birthday's Friday. We have a rule. I've been very mad. I haven't said anything about it socially usually, but the idea that people want to skip over Thanksgiving just to get to Christmas is crazy. I
Disgusting.
think Thanksgiving is the holiday that Christmas wishes it was. It is all about fellowship, putting your love into the food, and spending time with your family. And the fact that it's around my birthday, like my family, we never decorated until the week after Thanksgiving because my mom knew I want to give him his birthday, but I also want to give us Thanksgiving so that we know that we care about each other. So I'm thankful for you, thankful for doing the show, and thankful that we thought we were going to have a crazy college football season down to the wire with this many undefeated teams, and now what do we have? We've got a couple undefeated teams and then teams with 1 loss that are like, I guess I need to do this to get to the conference championship.
And happy birthday to him. I don't care. Good luck.
That's not true, Stephen A. We do care very, very much for our friend Mike Felder. Happy early birthday, Mike. Enjoy the holiday. Enjoy the football. Thank you, as always, for making us smarter, my guy.
No, it's always great. Thanks, Buck. Thanks, Lucas. I'm looking forward to it, and I'm ready to drop these turkeys in this grease, baby. Y'all take it easy.
Talk dirty to me. Mike Felder there with us on 104.5 The Zone.
He is preaching.
He is so damn good. It's not just that he knows everything in the world about the sport of college football and all these coaches, all the different schemes that they run, all the personnel, tendencies, and plan and schematic plans, right? It's that he has so many good insights on what it is to be just a well-rounded individual when it comes to the holiday season. You do not decorate for Christmas until after Thanksgiving has concluded.
Especially when Thanksgiving is the superior holiday. He's so right about these things.
Do you understand how angry I was? On top of all of the different things that pissed me off about, outside of Green Bay, Wisconsin, the people being lovely. Incredibly lovely people. I hate the cold. I hate how remote it was. I hate that I'm in an airport that has 1 terminal and I couldn't even find a place to eat. There was a vending machine. That's all the Green Bay airport had, all right? They were playing Christmas music on a loop in the godforsaken Green Bay airport, and I had it. My plane was delayed because it had to get de-iced. Like, I was contemplating self-harm because if I heard White Christmas one more time, on November the 16th.
Ridiculous.
I was gonna ram my head into my suitcase over and over and over again just to numb the pain.
Can we put it to a poll? What is the superior holiday, Thanksgiving and Christmas?
Oh, yes, please.
Because it is most certainly Thanksgiving, and I will not hear otherwise.
By a mile. At Buck Rising is where you can vote on the polls. Phone calls next. Welcome back. 615-737-1045. You can react to anything you heard from Mike Velder on the college football weekend. Vandy hosting Tennessee coming up at the end of the week. It doesn't feel like a Monday. I don't know why. Maybe because I didn't do anything yesterday. I don't know. I feel directionless without working a football game on a Sunday.
It feels like Thanksgiving morning. Not Christmas morning, because Thanksgiving's better.
All right, so how long has this been your official position?
Well, I say that because I woke up to World Cup soccer today, which is why
I know.
say. But
in fact, before you get into that, because the USA is going to start play against Wales at 1 p.m. Central Time today.
Yep.
So wherever you are, whomever you are, get to a bar or find somewhere to be communal with your fellow American citizens as we celebrate. Hopefully an attempt to do better than Qatar did in their opening match against Ecuador yesterday. I love the World Cup. I love having the World Cup back as a part of the. It's almost like March Madness a little bit, right? It's going on all day. You can watch it at any point throughout the course of your workday, and you really get into it. There's a vested interest in what's going on.
Yeah, if March Madness happened every 4 years.
But I feel, to your credit, because I know you got up super early to watch more soccer this morning.
Not this morning. There wasn't a 4 a.m. game, just 7 a.m.
No, I saw you post a picture of you very scenically sitting in your slippers on the couch with a cup of coffee watching 7 a.m. soccer. Yeah. Yes?
England with a 6-2 win over Iran in USA's group, by the way.
So my concern with the World Cup is that I just lose you for the entire show. That you because what are you watching right now while I'm talking to you, not making eye contact?
Netherlands leading Senegal 1-0 currently in stoppage time.
Okay, excellent. Because I thought for sure that there's no way that we get through a World Cup together and you're engaged in the show and doing everything that we need throughout the course of this. But you have done better than I expected so far on day one. I'm very proud of you.
Did you say something?
Oh, well, if when Lucas lets me down, I know I can trust Scott and Beth Page to lift me back up. Hey, Scott.
I'm always here. I'm always here for you.
Thank God.
First of all, is Robert working part-time now? What's the deal? Does he not come back at all? Or
Okay, so this is important because we believe Robert to be low-key the star of our show. And he is not here at present. Most days he is in the vicinity, though. Why are you lobbying to get rid of Lucas and replace him with Robert? Because I'm on your side.
No, I would never. No, if I'm going to lobby for Lucas, I'm going to lobby. I want to be Lucas's junior producer and him run a radio show. That's what I would do. And you would be left on an island with just Robert, the part-timer.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to fill time just to get to 60 seconds today because it's going to be hard. So here's the deal: we've had 3 losses since I've been watching Tennessee football. 3 of the worst losses we've ever had. One was the following year after '98. Arkansas throttled us at their place, cost us a chance at an SEC and a national championship. Then we come back in 2001, and Saban begins his assertion over us, dominating us, putting us in whips and chains. And, in 2001, knocks us out of the national championship, which might have been our best team maybe we've ever had. I mean, I love that team and their running backs and receivers. This one is another one just like that. And the only thing that has me hoping is those two games, we were perennial national championship SEC contenders. This one, we were not. We didn't come in this season as a contender and something to look forward to. But I 1,000% agree with you, Buck. This is not one of those silver lining type deals. Let's look at the record. I mean, we got our asses absolutely handed to us by a team that shouldn't have even been on the field with us. So I don't know what happened this week in practice. I don't know what all that was about. I don't know why we couldn't put one foot in front of the other, but it was not good. And hopefully the best thing we can do with this, we don't have to beat Vanderbilt by 60 points, but we need to actually come back and show that we're able to continue playing the way we've been used to seeing them play all year. So with this, I'll end. Just like I love the ceremonial spanking of the turkey that we do every year, it's our tradition. I love Buck Rising and Lucas Panzica and Robert part-time. Y'all have a good Thanksgiving, guys. I appreciate you.
You too, Scott. Happy Thanksgiving to you and yours.
Love you too, Scott.
Love you, buddy. I love that he comes in with the intent. He specifically wants the music. That is somebody who truly gets the show. That makes me happy. Speaking of weirdness, so Josh Heupel has just met with the media. Is it still ongoing? So I assume he's wrapped up his press conference at this point. He was asked a question about Jeremy Banks and a reported or a theory that had been floated by a handful of Vols fans on the internet regarding some friction internally in the locker room. The head coach addressed that. You'll hear it and more of your phone calls coming up next.
It is 12:01. Good afternoon from the Superbook.com Sports Desk. I'm Lucas Panzica. The Tennessee Vols are out of the college football playoff race after a 63-38 loss at South Carolina on Saturday. Head coach Josh Heupel just spoke to the media moments ago in Knoxville, stated that linebacker Jeremy Banks, who was not available on Saturday, should be available as Tennessee travels to Nashville to take on Vanderbilt. They will be, of course, without star quarterback Hendon Hooker, as the program announced on Sunday. Hooker tore his ACL near the end of that loss to South Carolina as Joe Milton steps in to take the reins against a Vanderbilt team that defeated Florida for their second straight SEC win, 31-24 on Saturday. Starters are out, and the U.S. men's national team's first World Cup appearance in 8 years will kick off this afternoon in the group stage against Wales. Nashville Soccer Club defender Walker Zimmerman in the starting lineup. Kickoff in Qatar is at 1 p.m. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Final hour already here. Off and rolling on this Monday. Jump in if you like at any point. 615-737-1045. Lucas is back there making it happen. Just the three of us, you, me, and Lucas, the rest of the way through. 615-737-1045. Updates coming out of Knoxville. Josh Heupel concluding his recap press conference with the assembled media today. There's a couple of different things that we have to talk about as a result of this, and some comparisons that are being drawn to a very, very poignant time in the life, in the timeline of a Tennessee Vols fan's situation. That Saturday night's loss at Columbia really, really kind of brings back up beyond the thing that you feel. Is it acid reflux where you start to feel something like kind of bubble up in your throat a little bit? Is that right?
I think so.
I feel like I've had to have had acid reflux or heartburn at some point in my life, but I feel like that's what it kind of feels like. Like that's after you stomach whatever it was that happened against South Carolina, like this thing starts to bubble back up a little bit, and you're like, oh my God, 2016 Vanderbilt at home.
There are parallels there that Tennessee needs to avoid.
We will get to those momentarily. But a question, do you have the question included in this clip? Excellent. So there is a situation that was not reported on around Jeremy Banks and Hendon Hooker, but was a rumor being circulated and gaining traction in the minutes, hours, and days since the Vols' loss to South Carolina has concluded. Jeremy Banks, the linebacker who did not play in this past weekend's game, was reported to have stepped on, is it the T in the locker room?
Reported is a strong word.
I'm sorry.
There hasn't been anything reputable about
alleged.
This. Yes. And it goes as far as like a post-game reaction show with a phone call saying, hey, I know people in that program that tell me this, from basically fans of the program. But yes, alleged to have Jeremy Banks stepped on the tee in the locker room, which if you do that, you're supposed to get down and do some push-ups. The story was he stepped on the tee. He didn't do his push-ups. Hooker got in his face about it a little bit, and a mini altercation happened where in the end of it, Joe Milton is pinning Jeremy Banks up against the wall.
Allegedly.
Backup quarterback pinning starting middle linebacker up against the wall in the locker room. Allegedly.
Well, Milton's probably one of the biggest human beings in there.
Yes,
so.
yes. Milton is much bigger than Jeremy Banks.
All right, so all this allegations, all right? None of it reported, none of it, concrete, but enough that a good journalist who would not be asking a frivolous question around this stuff if there was not merit to it, and Adam Sparks, who will join us later this week, asked the question of Josh Heupel, hey, is there any truth to this thing that's being discussed between your starting quarterback and your starting inside linebacker?
There's a lot of speculation about Jeremy Banks. I'm hoping you can just add some clarity to this. Did he get in an altercation with a teammate? Was he suspended for the South Carolina game? Is he available for Vandy?
We anticipate Jeremy being with us here this week, and as far as what transpired and those type of things, at the end of the day, he wasn't available this Saturday.
Non-answer. Now, this was a very wise train of thought that our buddy Alan Bell. Have we ever had Alan on the radio show? I know 3HL does it every week with him, so I don't want to step on anybody's toe. But I love Alan. I love Alan. I feel like we should have Alan at some point. But he said this on Twitter at AlanBell247 a couple of minutes ago. The thing about not confirming or denying that your linebacker tried to beat down your quarterback is that if it were literally anything else, you would say what happened. So there is enough nebulous stuff out there now to where a non-answer is only going to breathe more life into the allegations of the linebacker and the quarterback in an altercation.
But you know what it's better than? It is better than what happened in 2017.
I know the answer to this question.
When a reported altercation happened between now Seattle Seahawk Darrell Taylor and now New Orleans Saint Shai Tuttle in the Tennessee locker room or on the practice field or whatever it might be, and a picture is circulating of Tuttle's eye swollen where you can't even see his eyeball. No. It is completely swollen as if somebody punched him in the face. Butch Jones, when asked about it, what did he say? He said he fell on a helmet.
That's right.
And that's the truth. And then went on to lecture the media about negativity. So whatever happened in the locker room, thank you, Josh Heupel, for giving a non-answer rather than making up some hilarious, ridiculous
on
scenario.
A helmet, and that's the truth.
That makes your player sound even dumber than if he had just gotten in an altercation, which happens on football fields.
It'd been fine if he got Geno Smith. Right? You remember Geno Smith owed some practice squad linebacker $70, got his jaw broke?
He fell on a helmet.
He fell on a well, it's not even it is of course the ridiculousness of he fell on a helmet. But it's the follow-up of that's the truth. You need to believe me. I'm Butch Jones.
And then he went on a lecture to the media about the negativity is overwhelming. Like, buddy, you're about to be 4-8.
I miss him so much every day.
No.
It's just if I can't have a college football playoff appearance, Lucas, at least give me the hilarity of what Butch Jones was at a press conference.
But really, though, I think this is circulating because, like you said, people want to grasp and cope. But I think it's also people want to manifest an explanation for how and why this happened.
Other than you just got your ass kicked.
Yeah. And that's not a good enough explanation against South Carolina. That's a good enough explanation at Georgia.
Yeah.
They're just better than you, and you know that. But at South Carolina, there's something different about that. And I think that's a reason that this story has picked so much steam up, because people say, okay, well, maybe that would explain it. Maybe that would explain some type of disconnect with the defense and just the way that they looked on Saturday, which was unprepared and I won't say careless, but in the way they were playing.
I would call that careless.
Careless, yeah.
No, I honestly, I think that's the best possible way that you could articulate it. You want an answer beyond, no, they just didn't perform.
No, it's got to be something more, right? That's how people think about it.
Well, but you even brought that up to me this morning when we were putting the show together. Like, you find it implausible that the explanation can be, no, they just got beat. When Mike Felder kind of laid it out pretty cleanly.
Well, they did.
Tennessee got Tennessee.
Oh, they absolutely got flat out beat. There's no question about that.
Right.
But something was off with this defense. I mean, it that type of drastic nature of it just makes you think, like, what in the world happened this week?
615-737-1045. We're going to get into the 2022-2016 parallels for Tennessee here in just a second. Let's go to Chuck in Clarksville up next, though. Hey, Chuck.
Hey, Buck. Hey, why do we have to do this to ourselves all the time? Why do we have to take the razor blades out and start cutting ourselves after a loss like this? Just let's do the Bill Belichick and just say, on to Cincinnati and go to Vandy and end up 10-2 and go to a good bowl game. Joe Milton will be fine. He's playing much better this year than he did last year. And so I'm just saying, let's stop all this worrying about what happened 8 years ago or 10 years ago or whatever. We just got our ass kicked in one game and move on.
You know what? I think that's probably the best approach, Chuck. But here's what I'll say to you. I've got 3 hours of talk radio. I got to do something. I got to do something with my day. You know what I'm saying? And honestly, I do think I'm not trying to get you to self-harm, okay, with the razor blades like you mentioned. Like if you're close to sharp objects, put them away. But I do think don't you find it fascinating that there is this much of a parallel between what 2016 was down to the opponents and the moments that you had. Now, 2016 was the playoff formed in 2016?
Oh, yeah. That's playoff 2014 playoff. 2014 season was the first year of the playoff.
Why did I think it was more recent than that? Anyway, so it's not like 2016 there was legitimate college football playoff implications for Tennessee, but we're going to explain why those two situations are parallel and why it brings up that time period of the Vols fans' existence coming up next. You're also going to hear from Josh Heupel on Vanderbilt. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone.
The Buck Rising Show is powered by Spring Hill Heating and Cooling. Visit springhillac.com.
Yes, indeed. So, the 63-38 loss for the University of Tennessee this weekend. There are parallels to be drawn between another poignant time in Tennessee Vols history. 2016, where were you in 2016? Still at school?
I was a junior at the University of Tennessee.
All right, so you probably feel this more than most. I would have been, if you were a junior, I would have been a year out of college because 2015 was my senior year. So 2016, my first year down here, still, a babe in the woods, right? A deer in the headlights as far as what it was that the SEC and college football and the University of Tennessee truly meant to the landscape of the sport. And at the time, Tennessee having a bit of a moment under Butch Jones. They had beaten Florida. They had beaten Georgia. And you looked at an opportunity to win the SEC East. And what may result out of that, and where Butch was at that current time in his career, and you said, okay, maybe there's enough here to kind of soothe the angst, because it had already started with Butch, right? By 2016, like it really didn't spiral out of control until what would that have been? That was after the 17 season?
17 years when it really just spiraled into 4-8 and fired, and then the coaching search. Well, Butch Jones, people, I think, started to really be out on Butch after the loss to South Carolina.
Which is where we bring ourselves back to. So they lose to South Carolina, and you look around and say, okay, they still have an opportunity to make a decent bowl game. What was the bowl game that they were targeting at the time?
It's always the Sugar Bowl. So the highest-ranked SEC team that does not get into the playoff is going to the Sugar Bowl. And that's something that Tennessee hasn't been able to do in a really long time. So that turned into the target. When Tennessee lost to South Carolina in 2016, it was out of the playoff picture. They had lost 2 games, one to a top 10 A&M team on the road, and then got blown out by Alabama at home. And then they get into the bye week after those 2 losses, come out of the bye to travel to South Carolina that was just fighting for bowl eligibility and had a kid that was the age of a high school senior in Jake Bentley at quarterback. Bentley, finished high school early to go to South Carolina and started. So they lose that game, and I think really the moment people started getting out on Butch was when it became official that Tennessee would not win the East, when Florida went and beat LSU the following week in Baton Rouge. That was the week you got the Champions of Life comment when someone asked Butch Jones in the postgame presser after beating Missouri about the disappointment of coming up short in the East, and he said these guys are champions of life. And then it really started to spiral, the conversation around Butch from there. And then the backbreaker was the loss to Vanderbilt, which knocked them out of Sugar Bowl contention and sent them to the Music City Bowl.
45-34 here in Nashville was the loss to Vanderbilt. Tennessee came in as the 17th ranked team in the country. Shermer versus Dobbs, both, high-level quarterback prospects in college football at the time. And I think Shermer had a career high as far as passing yards were concerned. He was over 400 yards passing in that game. I remember it very well because I was still doing Vandy games at the time, Vandy home games. I was still doing the press box PA because I was still fresh out of college making $10 an hour and I needed a free lunch and like $50 a game or whatever they were paying me at the time. So I remember being in the press box and like not understanding the scope of it because, again, it was packed full of orange, as it typically is when opposing SEC fan bases travel to Vanderbilt. And to see the screams or to hear the howls coming from below in the stadium as Tennessee went on to blow that game, it was unlike anything that I had witnessed in my life to that point. Like, I had seen moments in my own sports lifetime where my favorite team came up wildly short against an opponent that they should beat fairly in hand. I go back to 2013, Indiana basketball in the Sweet 16 against Syracuse with the number 1 overall or the number 1 team in the country, a 1 seed, in the bracket, and they had nothing for the zone. I didn't, but I wasn't at that game. I wasn't physically present to feel that emotion in real time the way that Vols fans were who traveled here to Nashville, or many of you who live here went to that game, and to see the way that it just completely imploded at the hands of Kyle Shermer and Ralph Webb. It's not that long ago, but it just feels like something from a different time. So now you look at this situation. College football playoff was on the line. That's out the door now that South Carolina took it to you. The New Year's Six Bowl, theoretically still in play. We'll see what the rankings look like when they come out tomorrow. But should they handle business against Vanderbilt, they will put least put themselves in position to do so, which, by the way, is still a massive accomplishment, even if you don't want, any kind of moral victories today. I get that. But to look at the situation now, no Hendon Hooker, Jalen Hyatt, a bit of a mess. Do you have that clip you were talking to me about the Rich Eisen interview that he did? If you don't have it, it's not the end of the world, but I know that you had made mention of it earlier this morning because his disappearance, I thought, was totally perplexing to me. But let's hear from Jalen Hyatt, as a matter of fact. So this was an appearance he did before the game, correct, on the Rich Eisen show.
Is it true you want to lay it on him this weekend for that fact?
Jimmy? Oh yeah, I'm gonna treat this like a regular game. Just go out there and do what I have to do. But it's gonna be a little more, just a little more in the tank, just for this team. But just proud of what we have done so far.
Does the rest of the team know this? They must know it, right? They saying something.
Yeah, all of them know it. All of them know it.
Boy.
And it's just funny just being a part of this team as far as how everybody comes up to me like, hey, you know who we're playing, you know who we're facing this week, and it's just it's amazing to be on this game.
So, understandably so, the recruitment story of Jalen Hyatt and why he was passed over from the institution in the state that he went to high school, and so you understand why he might have that little motivation. He was giving a little life to it. Now, in retrospect, is that a bad idea? Of course, but I don't think anybody, Jalen Hyatt, Hendon Hooker, or otherwise, could have foreseen 63-38 the way that South Carolina did them so dirty. So now, no Hendon Hooker, Jalen Hyatt at least looking like he was in a bit of a funk. We'll see if he rebounds. Whatever this situation, alleged, not reported or otherwise, but important enough to bring it up in a press conference to Josh Heupel about the defense and Jeremy Banks and any kind of conflict that was going on inside the locker room, whatever that was, okay? All these things swirling around a team that still has a lot to lose in Tennessee, coming into a place where Vandy is, when have you felt this good about Vandy? Not since Derek Mason had 3 wins to start a season, beat a ranked K-State team, and then, got bum rushed by Alabama the following week.
Yeah, this Vanderbilt team has similar vibes to that 2016 Vanderbilt team, a team that had started to play really well. They were coming off a big win against Ole Miss and fighting for bowl eligibility, just like this Vanderbilt team.
Does that give you any kind of does it make your chest tight at all to think about what this could potentially be?
I think it does cause Tennessee fans to look at the Vanderbilt game in a very different light than they were previously, because it would have gone from, okay, just to take care of business, just knock Vandy to the side, we'll check her Vandy, whatever, and then see what else happens to see if we can get into the playoff on rivalry week. And now it's, okay, you can't have any security that this team is going to show up and blow out Vanderbilt, because that's what you thought about South Carolina, and it's a Vanderbilt team that is playing really good football. This Tennessee team is far more talented than Vanderbilt. We know that. They're far deeper, and they are going to have the support of the people in that stadium, despite the fact that it's at First Bank Stadium. But you do look at that game in a very different light now, with the pressure that is on that game now of losing it suddenly brings back all of those 2016 vibes. And you're not going to say that a loss to South Carolina and a 10-2 finish will undo any of the goodwill that starting off, 8-0 and beating Alabama and being in the playoff hunt for so long. You can't say that this loss on Saturday and a 10-2 finish in New Year's Six Bowl would undo any of that, because it would still far surpass preseason expectations. A loss to Vanderbilt would.
It would be very, very difficult to foresee, but just because the parallel exists, I think it's worth discussing. Now, as far as what it is that Tennessee has in front of them, I mean, you don't expect that Vanderbilt, given what their strength is in the rushing attack, you don't expect them to expose Tennessee's defense the same way that Spencer Rattler did, where you have guys running wide open under normal circumstances, given the way that Tennessee plays in the secondary. When you know that the focal point is going to be the rush, it is much easier to clamp down on the rush that way and force a team like Vanderbilt to pass. Now, can they burn you at certain points? Perhaps. I don't trust this Tennessee secondary with anything at this particular point in time, nor should you. But I do think it's just interesting to kind of look back on that time in Tennessee football history, because they were 8-4 coming into that game and still very much alive for the Sugar Bowl berth, but just to have it snatched from them by Kari Blossingame and Zach Cunningham and guys who have, obviously gone on to have pro careers, not quite that same level of talent on the Vanderbilt football team this year. But, I mean, I don't know how you could look at the results from Florida this weekend and take them for granted. Not at all.
And you're going to get their best shot without question, right? I mean, they're going to get up for this game more than any other game this season.
House money, baby.
Bowl eligible. Exactly. House money. You told Vandy fans 5 wins before the start of the season. They would take it. You told them a shot at bowl eligibility against a reeling Tennessee that just lost its quarterback. Absolutely, they're going to be chomping at the bit. And you think back to, the BVS comes into play. But 2011, Tennessee goes to Kentucky with a chance to clinch bowl eligibility in year 2 of Dooley, and they don't want to be there. The disinterest from the Tennessee players in that game was well documented after the fact. They literally didn't want to go to a bowl game because they just wanted to go home. And they sleepwalk through that game. They lose to Kentucky, breaking a 27-year win streak, whatever it was. And then 2016 against Vandy, when you're disappointed you lost the East, but still with a lot on the line, a chance to make history in a 9-win regular season, potentially 10-win season with a New Year's Six bowl, you didn't show up at Vanderbilt. That was an indictment of Butch Jones and his staff. That was the moment many fans thought, okay, this isn't going to work. So that's why all eyes are going to be on Heupel here, with some of the noise after the South Carolina game, the alleged situation with Jeremy Banks, the ugly loss to lose a shot at a college football playoff spot, but still with plenty on the line to do something this program hasn't done in a long time. How will they respond? And however they respond will be a direct correlation to Josh Heupel and how he kind of handles the situation with the locker room.
Let's hear from Josh Heupel on moving on to Vanderbilt. Was this a part of his press conference today or from an earlier media?
This was from the Josh Heupel show with Bob Kessling.
Okay, here's the head coach.
I was disappointed. They were too. I think it's important that take an opportunity to let it hurt, and it's a situation that our program's got to take another step and grow into, and I hate that we got to learn that this way.
Yeah. But you still have a couple of big games to play.
Absolutely. At the end of the day, as a competitor, whether it's good or bad, you got to reset and reload really quickly in this game. And as the players come in on Monday, we got to flip the script and learn the lessons that we need to, but we're going to have to move on to Vandy.
Are you going to this game?
No, I'll be in Bowling Green on Saturday doing some basketball on ESPN Plus. I'll be off the air about an hour before the game starts, so I'll be back in Nashville probably around kickoff, but I probably won't be able to make it to the stadium.
I kind of want to go. I haven't been to a Vanderbilt game. I went to a Tennessee game. I went to Tennessee, Florida earlier this year. I haven't been in that stadium in a long time, and I think it would be interesting to see. Justin in Germantown writes in the Zone TV chat. You can interact, by the way, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch is where we live stream the show. Justin in Germantown writes, how can I find the checkered seating chart? So there's a website, right? Checkervandy.com?
There is a website.
They can't. They can't possibly show up and do that after getting 63 hung on you by not a good South Carolina
Yeah,
team.
it's probably not going to happen.
I expect to see a lot of orange, but I do not. In fact, I advise against the checkering of Vandy just because what kind of karmic forces will then be working against you if you are the University of Tennessee fan base.
Mason in the YouTube chat says they're only talking about 2016 when Vandy's taken 5 wins in the last decade. That's true, but so many of those Tennessee teams were so dreadfully incompetent at the end of the season, which is when that Vandy game takes place. None of those losses to Vanderbilt, other than 2016 under Butch Jones, came with anything on the line. I mean, you could argue Jeremy Pruitt year one, that winner of that game, bowl eligible, loser of that game, 5-7. But as far as showing up with something to actually play for, something the program hadn't done in a long time, 2016 is the only example. Every other time Tennessee lost to Vanderbilt's because the program was just at its absolute depths.
Well, and here's the thing, it was kind of a crazy weekend in college football. So for all of the, it may end up being a lopsided result in favor of Tennessee. I have no idea what it's going to look like. Only Saturday's game will tell. But coming off of this, now heading into rivalry week where all these things kind of get messy anyway, then championship week on the horizon. After that, we start to get a little bit of a clearer picture because these things always play themselves out. But I do think that you can legitimately talk about this being a game in ways that smart football people are looking at it and saying, no, there is something to this game. In particular, this matchup with where these two teams are right now, based on what we've seen from them in the last 3 weeks of a sample size from either of them, Tennessee and Vanderbilt, at this point. Now, Tennessee obviously shakes up the college football playoff picture a fair amount. They plummet now. Their odds of reaching the Final Four went from 60% to 9%.
Right. So if anything, they clear up the playoff picture a little bit.
That's probably the better way. It's probably the better way to say it. So TCU up 21 percentage points now with the Tennessee loss. Michigan up 10, USC 6, Clemson 6, Ohio State 6, and LSU all benefited from the Tennessee loss this weekend. Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, and TCU all in if they continue to win out. TCU got a little bit of a scare themselves this past weekend, but did hold serve. They, whatever the lack of dominance means, the failure to impress the committee that way, they're not going to keep them out if they're undefeated. Because especially with the way that the Pac-12 has kind of gone. Now, USC is the wild card, I guess, that Tennessee was at this point, right? USC kind of fills that void, theoretically, that Tennessee was occupying.
I mean, you were talking about if TCU goes undefeated, then it'll be USC or Tennessee for the 4th spot if USC runs the table, wins the Pac-12, which at this point means just beating Notre Dame, which won't be an easy thing to do, and winning the Pac-12 title. Now, to me, USC controls its destiny. I mean, if this team runs the table, I'm putting them in over a one-loss ACC champion Clemson, especially when Clemson got blown out by a Notre Dame team that USC would theoretically beat in the regular season finale. So in my mind, USC 100% controls its destiny. Now, if LSU wins against Georgia, that remains the most chaotic scenario in the SEC title game.
Currently up to 6th as of last week's ranking, and that will be the SEC championship game coming up in 2 weeks from now. How LSU can muck things up with 2 losses already on the season. That's all I'm rooting for at this point.
Now you can root for that if you're a Tennessee fan. Now that you're out of the playoff picture, go back to rooting for chaos like everyone else.
Is South Carolina going to get into the rankings? You would have to think so, right?
They were in it a couple of weeks ago until a really bad loss to Missouri. I don't know. If they do, they'd be right on the edge of it. I guess at 25. I'm really fascinated to see how they play Clemson this week. They're going to be so fired up for that game. I'm really excited to see if Spencer Rattler can continue that.
615-737-1045. Last call for phone calls. We'll do some polls. We'll get a USA Soccer update before their World Cup match begins. Lucas has been locked in on the Netherlands game right now. What's the score of that?
It's over. Netherlands won.
Okay. 1-0? 2-0.
2-0.
2-0.
You don't have to say nil. It's okay.
Does it bother you more when I say nil as opposed to nothing because you know I'm actively trying to assimilate to your culture?
No, it's more of like nil is a British way of saying things. Like we don't have to sound British when we talk about
Maybe
something.
I'm an Anglophile. You don't know this.
Maybe. You do you, baby.
Find out next. Here we go. You gotta feel it down deep in your soul.
Let's go!
The USA getting ready to take the pitch here in about 15 minutes. We got starting lineups out. The World Cup officially upon us. I don't care if it is football season. It can be both football seasons at the same time, and we can all appreciate it.
It's like it's hitting me now. Like it's actually hitting me that the U.S. is about to step on the field in a World Cup for the first time in 8 years.
8 years is a ridiculous amount of time for them to go without participating in this fantastic event. What were you like when they failed to qualify last time?
Oh, it was awful. It was awful. Italy failed to qualify too, so I got failed by all sides. But yeah, it is one of those things that just is so inexcusable that should never ever happen. It should be considered a national embarrassment when it does. Honestly, it's not an easy thing to do, but when you don't accomplish it, it's a very embarrassing thing to go through. So that group. That was rock bottom for that group to not qualify for the World Cup with how far the game has come in this country. That was the first time U.S. hadn't qualified since 1986. So now here they are with this sort of re-energized generation of it's the second youngest team in the World Cup. I mean, the captain is Tyler Adams, a 23-year-old, which is really, really rare. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see what this team's going to bring because there's a lot of just unknown and how they're going to react. One player on this roster has played in a World Cup before. It's DeAndre Yedlin, and he's not going to see a lot of time. He's a guy that's going to come off the bench. He's not going to start, likely not going to start any games. So I'm excited, man. Walker Zimmerman in the starting lineup as expected as part of that center back pairing.
I am looking forward to this. I know Lucas is as well, and I'm very happy that our show is ending right as this match begins because then I would have zero chance of getting him to participate in the radio show today. So I'm grateful for that. 615-737-1045. Last call for phone calls. Do some polls momentarily. How about Tony, who's in Nolensville? Hey, Tony.
Hey, Tony. Hey, good afternoon, guys. I tell you what. I don't know if y'all saw it, but South Carolina just scored again. But I don't know if y'all saw this stat. I couldn't believe it. 63 points is the most points ever scored on a top 5 team by a non-ranked team of a top 5 team in the AP poll in the history of it since 1934.
Is that so?
That's what they said on the SEC network the other night. Most points ever scored on a top 5 team by a non-ranked team since the era of the AP poll goes back to 1934, 37, something like that.
Woo! Brutal. Thank you for the call, Tony. We appreciate it. 615-737-1045. You've independently verified that information?
That's true. I saw that stat floating around. Brutal, but not surprising, nor should it be.
63 points is an outrageous amount of points to put on a top 5.
A lot of points.
There they went again. Another touchdown drive. Cheeseburger will wrap up the phone calls for the day. Hey, buddy.
What's going on, Buck? How you doing today?
I'm good.
I'm good too, man. Hey, I just want to go ahead and say you can go ahead and book this right now. BU is going to get bowl eligible Saturday against UT. Vanderbilt is going to get their third back-to-back SEC win. Let's go BU, baby. I was proud they beat the Gators. I've been rooting for Vandy. I'm a Florida State fan. Gator fans, watch out. Florida State, we are going to kick y'all's butt Saturday. Florida State's going to beat Florida like no other. And Vanderbilt, they're going to make history. They're going to upset UT. Go BU, baby. And guess what? All the Bengals fans, get ready. Titans are coming for you. Titans going 8-3 Sunday. Tighten up, baby. Let's go. And you can tell Ron Slay, go VU, baby. Let's go. Tighten up. Let's go. It's the Buck Rising show. Yeah, Buck Rising. We got Buck Rising in Nashville all day, every day.
I love Cheeseburger.
Fantastic.
So much. Thank you for the call, buddy. Look at him. He's got the anchor down sign up somewhere. I hope he's 10-2 on the steering wheel Cheeseburger. Don't get too excited. I want the Cheeseburger song because it's always the same. It's, oh, yeah, Buck Rising in Nashville. I love it. It makes me happy every time. I want that to just play. No music, like no nothing, no imaging, no laser light show. Like I just want that to open up the radio show one day to see how big of a train wreck it would cause. It makes me happy. All right, polls.
Oh, Nelly, this is Keith Jackson talking about college football. It's time to stop the count. The polls have closed, and the granddaddy of them all has been tallied with your poll update. Oh, Nelly, talking about Buck Rising show producer and daily correspondent, Lucas Panzica.
Presented by Two Rivers Ford. Two Rivers sells below MSRP on all non-specialty new Fords. What was the most disappointing part of the Vols' loss to South Carolina? Gary says the score differential and our complete lack of a defense.
For me, I think, man, it has to be the Hendon Hooker situation. Like, to miss the college football playoff is a gut punch. To suffer a defeat of that scale is absolutely nightmarish. But to have Hendon Hooker go down non-contact and miss the rest of his senior year, my heart broke for that guy.
Yeah, most of the replies did say Hendon Hooker's injury.
I think that's right.
Will Hendon Hooker be drafted? 80% say yes.
I think he was a day 3 pick anyway. I'd be curious to see how NFL scouts view him coming off an ACL tear, just because if best case scenario, he's available for training camp if he makes an NFL roster, but I think it's borderline undrafted at this point.
Who is the best 7-3 team in the AFC at the moment? The Ravens, Titans, Bills, or Dolphins? 55% say Titans, unsurprising. 33% say Bills, 10% Dolphins, only 2% think it's the Ravens.
I think it's the Dolphins. Honestly, I would not want to see the Dolphins in the playoffs.
Yeah, and you got to consider, the 3 part of their 7-3, they were just going through a rash of injuries at quarterback. Tua goes down, Bridgewater goes down.
They both had concussions.
Right.
Yeah.
One after the other.
No, I think the Dolphins are decidedly the best 7-3 team right now in the NFL.
What is the U.S. men's national team ceiling in the 2022 World Cup in Qatar? 44% say it's the round of 16. 24% say can't get out of the group stage. 18% say they can get to a quarterfinal. 14% say they could get to a semifinal.
Can they get out of the group? I don't know the answer to
They
this.
should get out of the group. That should be the expectation, to get out of a group that includes Wales and Iran. Beating England to win the group is a challenge. England looked very good this morning, but they should absolutely expect to get out of the group. And at this point, they haven't gotten over the hump of the round of 16 since 2002. It depends on who they get matched up against. That should calibrate expectations, but I would love to see them win one knockout round game. But I think ceiling then would be quarterfinals.
It gets started in about 8 minutes from now for all of you who are excited.
What is the superior holiday? 74% say it's Christmas over Thanksgiving, and I'm incredibly disappointed.
Wow, 70, not even remotely close. Christmas over Thanksgiving. I think that's objectively false.
It is objectively false. The food is better, the weather is better, the football is better, and you don't have to buy presents.
You don't like the gift giving feeling. You don't feel rewarded that way.
I like the gift giving feeling.
It doesn't sound like you do. It sounds like you want to just, you know what? It's very fitting with your personality. Anytime there's just plates of food, trays of food to be had, Lucas Panzica is there.
But I don't mind a holiday without the stress that comes with having to make sure you've got all your gift giving situated.
Oh, buddy, that's where you're messing up. I just buy gift cards. Those the polls?
Those are the polls. Go USA.
Go USA. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Oh, on the way out the door, a quick reminder. Speaking of Thanksgiving, our friend Bishop Marcus Campbell of the Church at Mount Carmel, they're doing a Thanksgiving food drive. They just are telling people to drop off food before next Thursday when you have the opportunity to do so. Again, the Church at Mount Carmel. It's located on Monroe Street in North Nashville. They would greatly appreciate it. And if you want to do some good and give a gift, unlike Lucas Panzica, you can go do that courtesy of the Church of Mount Carmel. Have a great rest of your afternoon. Radio show starts at 10 tomorrow.